In April of this year, a handful of noisy skeptics and debunkers alleged that as a result of declining UFO reports and UFO footage, public interest in the phenomena had followed a similar declining path. Moreover, they alleged that the space around us is dead. While NASA and the vast majority of scientists and astronomers around the world would take issue with the latter claim, what of the rest? The truth is that worldwide, UFO reports have actually shown a marked increase in recent years. For example, here at UFO Magazine, reports submitted since the turn of the year by members of the public and UFO researchers alike equate to a 50% increase on the same corresponding period of 2001. And, with that, has come a comparable increase in UFO footage. As with UFO reports, approximately 95% of alleged UFO footage can, after proper research and analysis, be explained in conventional terms. Quite often, this process may take but a few minutes in detecting the telltale characteristics or signatures of an aircraft, or planet, or even a star. But once you have addressed these, and countless other explanations that might account for the unusual anomalous object or light seen, you are left, as with UFO reports, with a small residue of videotape sequences that defy all logic and explanation. When faced with these, skeptics and debunkers will often cry fake at best, or simply ignore them at worst, as is their custom. When analysing alleged UFO footage, UFO Magazine's Russell Callahan applies a totally objective stance. Often, those who submit what they believe to be genuine UFO footage vehemently disagree with his conclusions. But what leads him to arrive at those conclusions in the first place? Who better to respond to that question than Russell Callahan himself?
Thank you, Graham. Well, welcome to the office. Here at UFO Magazine, my job, or one of my jobs, involves analysing alleged images of UFOs. Now, grand though that may sound, it is in actual fact a very arduous task. Over the last 5 or 6 years here at UFO Magazine, we've had literally hundreds of videotapes sent through the doors. This is a subject that, according to some of the popular press, is a subject that's dead on its feet. Absolute rubbish is what I can say to that. The videotapes just keep coming and coming and coming, and photographs, not just digital photographs. We know, we're living in an electronic age, if you like, and it's very easy and very fast to be able to generate images and broadcast them around the world now with the advent of the internet. But real photographs, on celluloid film, these things are still being taken. People are actually still taking the time out to approach UFO Magazine or approach UFO researchers because they believe they've actually witnessed, filmed and photographed something that's not quite the norm. That's great. Without the UFO business, there'd be no UFO Magazine, and without UFO reports, there'd be nothing to put in there. Over the last 5 or 6 years, there's been no such thing as a decline. The subject seems to have grown and grown and grown. And probably if we go back, this 5 or 6 years, and let's just have a quick recap. 10 years ago, the price of a domestic camcorder was, you could go out and buy a car just as cheap. This day and age, you can go out and pick an 8mm or high 8mm video camera up for about £299. Now, it's still an awful lot of money, but it's a quarter or if not a fifth the price it used to be just a few years ago. So we've got to accept that then there are far more camcorders out in the general public, if you like. There are also professionals out there that are filming strange objects. Recently we've had footage taken from a police helicopter and made available to UFO Magazine. We actually showed it at the conference last year, and hopefully we can show you a little clip of that further along in this particular video. All sorts of and all means of images and occurrences have been happening over the past few years. And of course, let's not forget the amazing scenes that we've seen and been captured by several people. Martin Stubbs, Jeff Challenger, Les Willey, Andy Ellis have all been able to make available images that, quite frankly, should be embarrassing to NASA. We're going to show you some more of that further on in this video. So please let no one tell us that the subject's dead. What we've done it for this particular section, spotlight on UFO footage. Yes, over the last 5 or 6 years, it's no over-exaggeration that we've received literally hundreds and hundreds of videotapes. We go to this 95%, it's probably more than 95%, mistaken identities. Easy done, you know, newcomers to camcorders, newcomers to sky watching, see a satellite, wow, we've got something, you know, we can't see any wings, etc. That's fine. Mistaken shots of planets, and that's fine also. But there are those occasions where that hardcore percentage keeps coming through that's not so easy to actually dismiss. And we've got quite a good few examples of the like. We've also got some interesting developments in if we all think back to 1994 or 5, I believe it was, when the first Tuesday documentary was aired in Great Britain, and we had the guy from Panasonic, Simon Nash, dismissing the diamond-shaped UFO as nothing more than an iris motor effect, and something that happened when bright lights hit the iris motor and the lens records this shape, and it can't resolve the image, so it gives you this beautiful diamond shape on the screen. Well, we were very wary of that explanation in the first instance because of angles, etc., and how things didn't seem to fit. But we've now got some new examples of that, but we've also got a fabulous example from Australia where the diamond shape's seen in the sky, but as the camera focuses through the diamond shape, then there is an object behind it, and there's also a very strange occurrence, which you're going to see hopefully for the first time on this particular video. But there's a lot of material to get through, so sit back and enjoy it. We'll give you the close-ups where we can, and as much information about the footage as we can on screen. But this particular cut's being put to some nice music, so sit back for the next 15-20 minutes or so and enjoy some really good UFO footage.
I want you to know you were never there. I didn't understand what he meant, because I said, yes, I was. He said, no, you weren't. I said, yes, I was. He said, can't you get this through your head? You never saw anything. You were not there. You don't know anything. And he said, you know, this is a big desert out here. We could just take you out in the middle of this desert and no one will ever find your bodies. He said, you'll be nothing but bones and nobody will ever know what happened to you. And I told him I would not talk about it.
That car just let that one off. That's a man-made one, that one. I just saw the people in that car let that one off. Blowing in the wind direction. They've just let it off.
This is a basic iris motor. This is, of course, the iris motor.
Oh, what's it there they dropped by? Was that a star or was that a UFO? I don't know at all.
The Police Reporting UFO Sightings Organisation, or PRUFOS for short, is the brainchild of Gary Heseltine, a detective constable with British Transport Police. By the summer of this year, DC Heseltine had accumulated 42 UFO incidents involving some 110 police officers throughout Britain. Here, again for the first time on camera, DC Heseltine speaks about his interest in the subject and what he hopes PRUFOS will achieve.
My name is Gary Heseltine and I'm a detective constable with the British Transport Police in Leeds. I've been a detective constable for 9 years and I've been a police officer for 13 years. Prior to the Transport Police, I was a Royal Air Force police officer for 6 years.
Gary, PRUFOS is an acronym that people are going to be seeing a lot of, hopefully on the website. They'll have read about it in UFO Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Again, what does PRUFOS actually stand for?
PRUFOS is hopefully a catchy little acronym which stands for the Police Reporting of UFO Sightings, i.e. the PRUFOS Police Database, which is designed for serving and retired police officers to come forward with their own respective sightings. My interest in the subject actually spans back to when I was 15. Very briefly, I was walking a girlfriend home in Scunthorpe, Lincolnshire, when I saw a lighted object against a starlit sky which appeared to trigger a series of power grid failures, which to my mind made it very unusual. That interest inspired me to read books, etc., and follow the subject for many, many years. In the late 90s, with the advent of UFO Magazine, a glossy publication, I sort of reacquainted myself with the subject and was literally amazed to see how much what I would call police evidence was involved in the current scene. I began to read up on all the current books, and I would come across police reports in various books, and I began to think that there may well be a need for a reporting agency to cater for police officers. What you've got to understand is that for those police officers that have come forward, I suspect that 9 out of 10 don't, for obvious reasons of perhaps peer ridicule, and also a threat or a perceived threat to their career aspirations. That, I think, is a genuine reason why a lot of officers would never come forward and report things. The way I believed I could get around that, and I believe it is working already, is that I offer, or the PRUFOS database offers a confidentiality agreement that officers can contact me. I will get the correct story from them. I will promise to protect their identities, much in the same way that I would protect someone who gave police information as an informant or a confidential source. Basically, I will bring their story out into the public domain. I may alter very slightly certain details to protect their identity, but my principal aim is to get these reports into the public domain, because that's what I think is being missing.
When we talk about a lack of willingness, if you like, from certain officers to divulge information on this particular subject, are we noticing anything sort of geographically about this? Is it a case of that, you know, city forces seem to be probably hardly interested in the subject, but yet our country file type of bobbies probably get more opportunity and probably less ridicule, if you like, of the subject.
I think
is there something in that?
I think at this present time, with the database only being in existence for 6 months, it's probably too early to draw sort of geographical statistics. What I can say is from the research that I've done and from the new officers that have come forward since its launch in January, that I've just completed a report which is based on that historical research and on the new information. And what I can say is that 42 incidents spanning from 1955 to 2002, that involves well over 100 officers, in fact 110 police officers in those 42 reports. And the statistic that strikes me as being relevant is that over 60% of those cases, 60% of the 42, are multiple police witness cases, sometimes ranging from anywhere from 2 up to one particular case where there are 17 officers involved who see an object from at least 5 different geographical locations, which I believe is a very impressive case indeed.
Obviously, without giving too much away at this particular point, are there channels in place, shall we say, for the officers who have experienced an alleged UFO sighting to report this at work, if you like?
Yes, I mean, what you have in England and Wales are 43 county police forces, and I can't speak for everyone, but I would say the vast majority of forces do have a force policy that would allow for an officer to make an unusual aerial phenomena, shall we say, report, and that would be usually passed forward to the Ministry of Defence, and in some cases that may well lead to an MOD investigation. Certainly some of the cases that I highlight in the report that I've just completed have led to MOD investigations, and some of those remain unknown.
That's answered the next question. In your experience, has this happened? And obviously, yes, it has.
Yes, I mean certainly in the historical research aspect, I've come across a number of cases which are quite well known within the UFO circle or domain, if you like, but they did lead to MOD investigations, and many of those have resulted in an unknown conclusion.
Going back to your time as an Air Force policeman, was the UFO chatter around in your life at that time?
I certainly had the interest at that time, but I can honestly say that during my time in the Air Force, I did not ever really gain into any proper discussion or dwell or find out anything of particular interest. What is interesting is some of the information that I'm now getting back from people and officers and civilian support staff. My own force, the British Transport Police, in January of this year, coincidentally, set up its own intranet site for officers where they could highlight clubs and leisure facilities, etc. I immediately posted an intranet site for the Proof-Force database asking my own force officers to come forward with any information. It got a lot of ridicule at first, as you would expect from police officers who are a known wit, but beyond that, as I expected, a discussion is ongoing. And what I can say is that very recently I've had a piece of information that relates to a very similar time when I was in the Air Force, about an incident in 1993, which in terms of background information is very interesting, as it highlights that what is now a serving transport police officer is a sergeant, whose details will remain confidential, but he highlights an incident where in Vigrat, which was a little town which was in Germany, if you were in the forces, you lived in the German community off base, and they were in their quarters in Germany in 1993 when they heard a very loud explosion, and they believed it was a terrorist bomb, because at the time there had been a number of terrorist incidents. Everybody in the flats that this particular officer was in went out onto the balconies, onto the road, wondering what's happened. Now, incidentally, within an hour of that bang, and there may have been 2 bangs, it was enough to shake the windows. Was perceived as a bomb. It turned out not to be a bomb. The SSVC, which is the service's TV and radio channel, came over the air within the hour and said that it was a sonic boom and that there was nothing to worry about. Now, the incidental information from that is that this officer knew someone who worked in a particularly sensitive area of the camp, the RAF camp in Germany, and they were responsible for collecting a number of pilots from a certain area of the station, and this particular driver picked up some pilots who had allegedly been involved in chasing a very large UFO along with other interceptor aircraft across Germany, and it was the UFO that had caused the sonic boom, as it were, as it accelerated from the aircraft. In the words of the police officer, the girl picked up the pilots after the incident, and they were as white as sheet, and they were obviously chattering amongst themselves, having never seen anything like it. So it's information like that that puts into context some of my Air Force, because I immediately recognise the truth of somebody talking because of my background, and I can immediately relate that it's a true event.
Finally, Gary, we've got a website. The address will appear on the screen as we're speaking. What can people expect to find from the website? What's going to be there for them?
Well, at the moment, as I thought it was important that very early on in January that I get a very basic website out there. It is very basic. It does set out what I'm trying to do. It does set out contact information where people can email me or telephone me on a confidential telephone number. And beyond that, I will give my address out once there's been established contact. I am currently in the process of having a website designed which will be much more transparent, much more user-friendly, and registering hopefully the Prufos as a domain name, so it will be a short web address, so that it hopefully should begin to be picked up on web magazines and things like that as a good source for people to go to. I certainly think that's an area where a lot of information will be put out and be regular updated. That's my aim, is to get the information out there and make it transparent. I'm after getting the information out into the public domain.
So where anonymity is asked for, that's obviously respected, but people are going to be able to see and read reports from serving police officers.
That's right. What I'm hoping for is that with the publication, hopefully, of the report that I've just completed, that one, it will be published in the police review. It is being sent to the police review, and hopefully they will publish some or extracts from the report. I think it's an important document historically wise, because I think it does for the first time collate police UFO sightings and put them in one place in a chronological order, in a very simple logistical manner, much in the way of a police report. I think it's a good reference document that much of which will be put out onto the new website when it's done, and certainly when the new website is up and running, it will cater for other areas like the information from Germany that I've just mentioned, like police officers being involved in suspected UFO crashes, like officers being involved in Rendlesham Forest. At this moment in time, from a civilian UFO researcher's point of view, it's been very difficult to attract police officers or gain their confidence, I suspect, to allow them to speak freely to independent UFO researchers. I hope that as a serving police officer, they may tell me things that they wouldn't ordinarily tell the civilian researchers. And if that can be done and I can protect them, then I think that's exactly why Prufos was set up. You know, hopefully I can give an insight where others may not be.
I mean, it was very strange. Okay, was it just like moving at a slow rate of speed?
It wasn't a slow rate, it was a fast rate, but it was coming down.
I wondered, did you have anyone call you about a strange plane or airplane or something in the air?
Where?
It was coming down Sampson Drive. I don't know what it was. If it was a flying saucer.
What did it look like, ma'am?
It was like almost like an iridescent color. It was like a bluish purple.
I could see a red glow up in the sky. It was huge. This thing wasn't making no noise.
Well, was it moving or was it just?
Yeah, it was glowing. It was moving. You could see it like up in the air, glowing and getting further away from me.
People are serious. They're very upset.
Whatever it was, lit up. I mean, literally, if you were underneath it, you could see it would be like daylight, but red light. It's south of all 82. I'm moving east now on it. Okay, Dave, it looks like it's flickering more now, and it looks like it's running a little east of me now. Hey, Walter, chase it back north. I want to see this thing. It's going pretty good. It's all the way into Liberty now. It's glowing. How far it's visible, you should be able to see it. It changes colors from white to red to green. The sucker has not moved. We have multiple departments right now that have sightings on it.
We have a report of some flying object in our jurisdiction. Do you know of anything that should be in our airspace this time, close to the ground?
Right.
This is not a prank phone call, I swear. You can call me back to verify.
Look at the radar scope, and I go 60-mile diameter of Youngstown, and there is nothing out there. I don't see anything out there, nothing on the radar scope. Just pulled off. There's definitely a structure there on 429, what you saw. I can see an upper structure off the main part of the lighting. Right, yeah, something with a different colored lighting to it. I got them right here. I'm looking at them. What the hell is it? They're sitting stationary. I got 3 of them. What do they look like? I've got 4 discernible colors. I got red, yellow, green, and blue. And the one just was like flashing. So if they're those planets those guys were talking about, then they're planets with Christmas lights on. This is weird. Oh my God, I hope that's a plane. Oh, please be a plane. Oh, please.
In December 1980, UFOs were seen on at least 3 consecutive nights in and around Rendlesham Forest, Suffolk, England. US personnel from the adjoining bases at RAF Woodbridge and Bentwaters were among many witnesses to these events. Were they all fooled by the Orford Nest Lighthouse some 12 miles distant, or was there a genuine UFO incident? In official documents released some 20 years after the event, Ministry of Defence officials who dealt with the Rendlesham Forest incident at the time insisted that nothing untoward was seen on neighbouring RAF radar stations. Indeed, the radar equipment at one of those stations, RAF Neatishead, was claimed to have been switched off during the incident. But that claim was recently challenged by a new and unexpected source. For the first time on camera, former RAF aircraftsman Gary Baker, who served at RAF Neatishead in December 1980, delivers his damning verdict on the MOD's official version of events.
And Neatishead, as a radar station, was split into 2 squadrons for operations purposes, bearing in mind that it's a small RAF station in comparison to others, a very small place, and its primary role is as a radar station. It has no other function. No RAF personnel actually live on the base. They are living elsewhere in the surrounding area and RAF bases close by, mostly Coltishall. And the whole of the operation at Neatishead is geared towards maintaining the integrity of the southern part of the United Kingdom airspace. Control of air defence aircraft in their role as interceptors in intercepting would-be hostile aircraft or identifying unknown aircraft, but that role was not an everyday role. The everyday role was a routine one of maintaining the integrity of the airspace by recognising all the aircraft flying in the sky and making sure that they were flying from A to B in the route that they'd been planned to fly, and that was the thrust of the job. I was a member of 2 squadron, Y Watch. Each squadron was split into 2 watches, and the watches were something which was used to maintain 24-hour personnel to be available to cover the radar picture. And each squadron was commanded by a squadron leader, as I've said, and my commander was a squadron leader called Mike Shields, who was supported by a lot of other RAF officers, from junior officer ranks as pilot officers, flying officers and flight lieutenants, whose job as air defence controllers was to control air defence aircraft in interceptions and the recognising of unknown aircraft when the quick reaction alert aircraft were launched in response to these threats or presumed threats. Neatishead was a RAF station, but obviously being part of the RAF, it was part of NATO, and NATO across the board, whether it's Army, Air Force or Navy, have a process whereby personnel from the individual air forces, in this case, would have tours of duty in or on stations or bases in another's air force. So at Neatishead we had a number of American Air Force officers on exchange postings, and my watch commander actually on Y Watch was a Captain Bud Horan, who was an American Air Force officer, a Texan and a very nice gentleman. I was an airman, a senior aircraftsman in Y Watch, and periodically through my service at Neatishead I would be allocated to watch duties. That would mean that I would do 4 days on and 4 days off. On the 4 days on, you do 2 12-hour day shifts, then 2 12-hour night shifts. And the other squadron's watch would be manning the radar station and the ops room when you're off duty. And so there would be lots of people when the squadron were on duty, either earlies or lates, and a few people to maintain a basic skeleton crew when it was quiet, when there was no military air defence flying, and that crew was responsible for maintaining the integrity of the air defence of the southern half of the UK, recognising all the aircraft airborne, and providing a crew should we suddenly find ourselves in a position where we're at war or an unknown aircraft turns up, or, as happened, Russian spy planes came over, and you were there to give the basic service requirement to carry out the air defence and control aspect of taking a fighter aircraft from its base to its interception with an unknown aircraft, and whatever the outcome of that may have been. As part of the job of maintaining the integrity, the safety of the United Kingdom air defence environment, it's absolutely essential that radar coverage is maintained, because otherwise there's going to be holes in the radar coverage, and at a sensitive time between east and west, it's absolutely imperative that you maintain that safety. So the radar at RAF Neatishead was in fact 2 radars, both of which were main air defence primary radars, and they were working night and day together, and at any one time you could change from one radar to the other on the radar tube, on your screen in front of you, of which there were many in the ops room, many screens, all involved with doing different specific jobs to maintain this air defence safety. And I actually know for a fact that these radars...
Have they got a name?
Yes, there's the Type 84 and the Type 85 radar, and also at Neatishead there was height finding radars, whose job was specifically involved in checking the height of aircraft, and they were called HF-200, height-finding radars. So these two radars are working together. If there was routine planned maintenance to them, or if one went wrong, which as all equipment does from time to time, and military equipment being no different from any other things, they do go wrong. But you don't have two things going wrong at the same time. The planned maintenance would be planned so that one radar was operational while the other was, for a brief period of time, maintained to its full operating capacity, then switched back on again. But all these radars form the defence network, and all the aircraft which these radar pick up are recorded. All the radars are filmed, and that would be for the obvious reasons that if there was an incident or a problem, the factors that involved in that problem could be traced and tracked and looked at and analysed. So it's imperative that the radar picture is recorded, and that's not just for incidents or emergencies or problems, it's also for purposes such as training, because if you're going to let lots of people loose on real situations, it's best that they train from what's gone before, and radar tapes are no different. But all radar is recorded. Neatishead sent its radar picture to other establishments, and one of which was RAF Watton Eastern Radar, which was an air traffic establishment, which is distinct from air defence radar. Air traffic, in my understanding, were involved in the transit of an aircraft from one place to another, and also the taking off and landing of those aircraft. Aircraft involved in defence of the realm, interceptions, and ancillary aircraft integral to maintaining that capability, such as airborne early warning aircraft or tankers to refuel aircraft in flight, also fall under the air defence umbrella. So the two are separate but interlinked. With regard to the Rendlesham incident, obviously I'd been aware of that for a number of years through reading about it, and I've had an interest in that during that time, but felt that I personally didn't have anything to add to the incident of a UFO landing at RAF Bentwaters/Woodbridge, but I had information or a knowledge of some happenings from my Air Force times. Whether they were linked was hard for me to say, or if I felt I had something to say, it was of such a low level of importance to my opinion at the time that I felt, oh well, that's interesting, and just followed the story the same as anybody else. But it wasn't until the end of August, when reading UFO Magazine and the article written by Georgina Bruni stating that the MOD had released information regarding the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident, mentioning RAF Neatishead and RAF Watton and the radar station, and the fact that the radar camera was switched off at RAF Neatishead, and coincidentally the radar tapes from RAF Eastern at Watton had been processed with a very poor, ineligible result. I find absolutely unacceptable. Bearing in mind, this happened at a time when the backdrop was the Cold War. Air defence of our country and of NATO was very, very important. UFO flap and the MOD had come down to take away the radar tapes.
Now let's just qualify this again. although you can't be certain of the actual date, you know it's
No.
Christmas.
Yes, this is 21 years ago. It wasn't a major deal. I'm perhaps no different from anybody else in society to remember exactly dates and times 20 odd years ago is a very difficult thing to do, bearing in mind that that particular date or dates of the so-called occurrences at Bentwaters and Woodbridge for me would not have meant anything to me at the time. It is inconceivable that the RAF would not have had their radar cameras working on at least one of the radars, perhaps not of Neatishead, but of another establishment. There would definitely be film of radar of that incident of that time. And
Tell us how the rumours, you know, what was the discussion? Who was talking about this? Was it the NCOs? Were the officers? Or was it just ordinary aircrew? Were they talking about any specifics? How, for instance, did you know this rumour start, or this claim emerge about taking the radar tapes? You know,
I'm not sure
can you
actually
recall
how it came about.
Well, I mean,
but,
was it talk as you went into the ops room, or was it talk over the canteen table? You know,
it would have been a combination of all those, bearing in mind that there would have been a Christmas break at Neatishead at that time for the main squadron duties, but a watch system would have operated. But for the bulk of the personnel on the squadrons, they would have come back to Neatishead after the Christmas break period and full of the same talk as anybody else in any walk of life. Did you have a nice Christmas? All the rest of it. But within that, there was rumours spoken about. It would be my nickname in the Air Force was Swiller Baker. For some reason, it would be, "Hello, Swill. Have you heard there's been a big UFO flap on, and the MOD's been down and taken away the radar pictures?" And that could have happened in the crew room during a tea break, or a quiet period in the ops room, or on the bus on the way to work.
But from where you're sat now, although we're talking about events almost 21 years ago, you can sit there now and look at that camera and tell people that that is exactly what was said at that time.
Yes, and it wasn't just one or two people. There was lots of people talking about it. I've recently been in contact with an old colleague of mine who served on 2 Squadron with me during that period. I haven't spoken to him for 15 years. I contacted him through his mum's address, who I happened to have visited 20 years ago, and she still lived at the same part of London, and I got the telephone number of my friend Mr. X. I'm not going to give his name because he hasn't given me permission to at this time, but he remembers exactly the same rumours. And when I discussed it with him, I didn't make any connections with the Rendlesham Forest thing at the time. I just asked him if he'd had any recollection of a UFO flap and the MOD coming, etc. And he did have that recollection in the same degree of accuracy as myself, not pinned down or honed to a specific time, date, person, etc., but a memory from a period, and that would be from that period. Seeing UFOs for the average person in the street isn't an everyday occurrence.
And
at least it isn't for me.
Yeah.
And same with radar pictures. They don't appear all over the place, and when they do, it gets talked about. I believe I've maintained and upheld the spirit of the Official Secrets Act. I've decided to say what I'm saying now on the strength of the MOD releasing information. If they chose to release what I consider to be the wrong information, I feel it's incumbent on me to offer an alternative view from the standpoint of an ordinary serving member of an establishment that would be involved in air defence aspects. And for the MOD to say that UFOs are of no defence consideration is absolutely ludicrous, because if something lands next to an air base, whether it's RAF or USAF, and that base has nuclear weapons on board, excuse me, that's very, very serious, and it is of defence significance. And I want to say, however small my part in this was, that the MOD probably and almost certainly are being economical with the truth, or at worst lying through their teeth, and are withholding information on this. And I have no doubt that there is radar pictures of the event, and possibly others outside of my knowledge as well.
3 years ago, UFO Magazine came into possession of some 2,500 hours of space shuttle footage, all of which had been dutifully recorded and logged over a period of 5 years by Martin Stubbs, a cable TV station manager in Vancouver, Canada. Since releasing successive documentaries about the footage, NASA has maintained a diplomatic silence, refusing to comment about sequences such as this, or this, or this. Some believe that NASA's reluctance to engage the UFO subject at any level is born from a deliberate policy-making decision. But, like most institutions who employ tens of thousands of personnel, mistakes are inevitable. Take the case of the vanishing NASA website, for example, as told by Andy Ellis, founder and head of the civilian UFO organisation Yorkshire UFO Info.
Definitely the early missions. I think the one that set it all off was STS-84, which became known as Willy footage. That was the one where the object came and stopped and appeared to hover near Mir, and I mean this was all under a distance of 2,800 feet, and it performed manoeuvres and flew off in a completely new direction. That set it off for me, and was one of the reasons we set up the website. We wanted to do a website as like any normal group with local sightings and things like that, but with the field that I'd kind of just slipped into, which was the NASA side, it just took off from there. So that happened. Through that's how I got in touch with Jeff, and between Les Willett and Jeff Challender was where we got the NASA mission footage started, and that's where it took off from. So from 84 you had STS-96, which had, in that one mission, probably some of the best footage I've seen as far as evidence and asking questions goes, when you've got illuminated objects in the black of space pulsating past an International Space Station that's just been built. You've got several other orbs or balls of light, whatever you want to class them as. All we know is they're just unidentified, and these things are flying up the Florida Key coast and cutting into clouds and chasing lightning and other cloud formations. You've got NASA technicians following these stuff with the cameras, not only following but yet zooming in for a closer look. Now, to follow and to zoom in shows that they're interested in it.
Absolutely.
Not only zooming in, but they know that somebody somewhere could be watching. They pull the feed and kill it so that there's no picture on the feed that our guys are getting, but yet they're still watching. So if there's nothing to it, there's no reason to be sneaking, doing these little tactics.
And again, I'm sure you, Jeff, Les, and many other people have actually broached NASA with questions that aren't pertinent questions, or aren't rude questions, if you like. These are questions that say, excuse me, can you tell me something about what we're seeing?
I think the biggest problem we found, I mean, and Jeff and Les have worked tirelessly on it, people seem to think as soon as you get something like this, you just go and screaming at NASA. I mean, we're only interested in asking questions as well. We're not experts, so we've been emailing who we think are the relevant people and asking for advice at first, and asking questions of, well, why is this doing this, and why does it appear to do this, and why is your guy following it if you keep telling us it's ice and debris, and why are you cutting the feed off if there's nothing to it? It doesn't seem right. The biggest problem I had was when we got some of the stuff, originally 84 and then 96, I actually took it to a well-known university which is in the city where I'm from, so it's not hard to figure out which university it is, and I was doing that to go to the heads of physics and astronomy because I wanted their professional opinion. I want looking at something and going, oh wow, that's amazing, I'm just going to run off with it. I did the best I could by taking it to optics and imagery departments to learn what I could from them. And the biggest problem I had, whenever you went up against these skeptics who basically just poo-poo everything to do with the NASA footage, they were the ones who were abrupt and their whole attitude stunk. And you thought, wait a minute, I've already been to certain guys who maybe are in the NASA field, but they're not stupid. These are professors, these are astronomers. They've looked at it and they've said, well, yeah, it is a bit unusual. Why is it doing that? And we're talking about distances of 2,800 feet under the effects of a camera zoom. Something should be blurred, or something should be affected in the way that you're viewing it. So we check these things, but yet you put this to somebody who's not even connected with NASA, who are the skeptics and probably the loudest voices on this, and they just completely try to insult your intelligence, maybe get a bit slanderous with the remarks, and you think, where's this going? I mean, all I'm doing is asking a question. That all came along again because we were trying to go to NASA. We wanted to learn about the missions. People kept saying find out about the timelines. You can get the flight record. You can find out when adjuster rockets were fired. We wanted to gather as much as we could.
Find out when the astronaut went for a leak.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we wanted to gather as much as we could about the mission and learn a little bit more, because I mean, there's only so many insults you can take from certain people who are just, when you're dealing with the subject, they're trying to insult your intelligence, who think you'll give up. Basically, all you do is stop talking to them people, but continue with your work. At the end of the day, if you've already checked what you're dealing with to an extent, and that's held up, then you continue. So we went to NASA looking for answers. NASA basically don't even speak to you on the footage, so we were at a loss there. But I continued to just trawl around nasa.gov, and I thought that it'd be nice maybe to get bits of information on old missions. It might be a bit nice to get some information on the shuttle. Maybe we'd get some diagrams and schematics and stuff like that. So I'm just trawling through. I mean, there's links and links and links. I mean, the NASA.gov website's huge, and I mean, half of it, within an hour you can just think, I've had enough of this, because it's just all technical and talking about this and that. But we continued to get going, and I went to one of the electronic reading rooms through one of the various links, and in there it had documents declassified under the Freedom of Information. So I thought, well, this is worth a go. So I click on that link and it opens another page, and it had all different sections there relating to all kinds of stuff. Then there was the documents declassified, I think it was something like 97, 98, 1999. So you click on each one of them links, and that opened a different thing with like a log, a reference, and maybe like an order kind of number that you could use. And within these, Freedom of Information and documents declassified by NASA, which was probably in the title somewhere, which was documents declassified by NASA within the last 5, 6, 7 years. This was where we found, among the pages and pages and pages, there was different log numbers that related to what we were dealing with, which is the UFO subject. The feeling we got at first when we started questioning was that the way it appeared anyway through trawling through the website was it was more or less NASA thought, or if it ever came out, I don't know if it got a Congress or who, I mean, I don't live in the States, so I don't know how it worked, but the feeling we got, and speaking to various people, which some people in NASA do speak to, but I can't go into any more about that, but the feeling and the way we were pointed was that if NASA have presented this stuff, but not like gone on telly and says, here's all his documents, if they've actually presented it, then they're not classed as hiding anything.
No.
But if you find it, they can always then work a way around of making it disappear, which is probably what they did. So the feeling we got was they presented it, they're not making it public, and luckily we stumbled on it. I mean, I've got a couple of the links which drawn us to it, and you've got your usual stuff. I think if I read through a few of them, it'll give you an example of the basic kind of stuff that's there. But in with all this basic kind of NASA mumbo jumbo is the stuff that makes you sit up and pay attention.
There's a bunch of words that sort of leap off the page, isn't there?
I mean, there's various things like STS-81 flight readiness review package. I mean, fair enough, it's just standard stuff. You can go from like contract reports, telecommunications. You've got various info on headquarters employees. It's just the stuff that you'd have, and this is all stuff.
Day-to-day stuff of a big corporate organisation.
That's it. So I mean, and plus this was all under the link of documents released under the Freedom of Information. So I mean, there's pages and pages of this kind of stuff of just your average thing. I mean, other things talking about X documents. But then you start getting on to various questions about UFOs, and UFO-related documents as declassified within the last 5 years. Now, when seeing them ones, I knew already NASA had like their own kind of MOD stance, which is like the official kind of
defence significance.
Yeah, if there's no defence significance, they're not landing and running around, there's no problem. NASA had that on their own webpage, and a few of these links that were on there related back to that page. but several ones were just completely separate. I mean, when we first, especially with working with the NASA footage, when we seen this one, which was UFO sightings by Apollo 8, 11, 12, Mercury capsule, Mercury 7, 8, 9, Gemini capsule, Gemini 4, 7, 8, 11, 12. So I mean, by reading it, you think, well, UFO
They've all
sightings.
seen UFOs.
There's some information relating to a UFO sighting by Apollo 8, 11, 12. It says it
Sure.
there. So we made a note of this, and I mean, I was quite excited anyway by reading this on. I thought, oh, well, if it's freedom of information, we can apply for it in the United Kingdom. And actually, on the web page itself, there's a little link that says FOIA request. So you can request through NASA's own website, which goes to their Freedom of Information officer, and he does the usual stuff. So I put quite a few requests in, just to see what had happened. After a while, the request had come back saying, like, denied, and this document doesn't exist, at which point I'd give them the reference number, which is like 97/100, and I'd even give them the complete title. And then after a while, I got pointed saying, oh, well, all the information you need is at this link, and that link was their like official stance on UFOs. There's no defence significance. After reading probably this long page of NASA's involvement with UFOs and how they're not really bothered because there is no evidence, I pointed out to the FOI officer, well, if the document requested has got a title of UFO sightings by Apollo 8, 11, 12, why is there nowhere in this segment of the link you've given me anything that relates to Apollo 8, 11, 12? It doesn't make sense. At which point I've got no answer. So we left it at that, and I continued to bother them for that one. But as I went further through these links, which was in the space, I'd say about 2 days, I spent on just these links and these pages, making as many copies as I could. It kept cropping up about the UFO info, and then there was NASA facts on UFOs, as well as all the other pages that just related to anything. So we kept going. Then there was the other one, the United Government and the unidentified flying objects. That was the link, which was their usual stance. But the one that really got me going was this one, which was on the 1999 link under released documents. This says information on sighting of possible alien craft. Now, we're not talking about a UFO. We're talking about an alien craft. They've actually they've titled it. They've changed it from fact sheet on UFOs to information on sighting of possible alien craft. I mean, for NASA to use that terminology, it's just, I think it's unheard of. But to call something an alien craft as an alien, I mean, it puts it in a whole different ballpark to unidentified flying objects.
Absolutely.
This was the only one that used this terminology of possible sighting on alien craft. So as soon as I seen that one, and I mean, I knew straight away that it's just completely out of the norm for that even to be on there. You'd think that every effort had been made for that not to be there. But there's a link, there's a log number, so we did the usual thing that we did probably 15 times before, put the request in. The request came back, denied, and this doesn't exist, at which point, where did you get this from, I was asked, and where did that come from? I took a screen grab of the actual Freedom of Information webpage and emailed that to the webmaster and the Freedom of Information officer who is at NASA. No reply from any of these. Reading a little bit further into it, there was another one which says information about unidentified flying objects and any claim made by people who say they were abducted by extraterrestrial. And I thought, well, why are NASA interested in people who claim to be abducted? So it was just getting even more suspicious of these average kind of documents who just took a twist for the better for the research we were doing with the NASA footage. Because I thought this would be all evidence in our corner to point towards the footage that people are calling ice and debris. If I can say to somebody, well, you're classing it as ice and debris, but if this information on sighting possible alien craft related to a piece of footage we had from a mission, well, we've hit the jackpot there. So we asked for all this. Emails get ignored. I even made phone calls to the various Freedom of Information officer, at which point you get passed around, and the next minute you're speaking to a janitor who's cleaning a hallway somewhere. So they just basically did not speak to you. I would say within the space of 2 or 3 days of actually reporting about the possible alien craft and the abduction one, when I went back to the NASA website just as means for researching this, the complete links had changed. There was only one link that related to UFOs, and that was the link that was their standard no defence significance kind of MOD thing. Everything else, all the documents released under Freedom of Information, the 1997, 1998, 1999 link which related to all these documents was gone. There was just one single link left from maybe several that I'd used previous, but luckily for me, as soon as I'd seen these things, I took prints, I took screen grabs, and we've got the NASA's own screen, Freedom of Information, you can read it, it's there, it's as it was offered. We took grabs of it, which I've emailed back asking them why it's missing. To this day, still had no reply.
Christopher Martin first began experiencing the UFO phenomena at close quarters several years ago. But apart from self-publishing a book about those experiences, Christopher is perhaps best known for videotaping some of the most striking daylight UFO footage ever seen of anomalous aerial activity over London. In 2001, Christopher shared his footage after being invited to lecture at Laughlin, Nevada, and, earlier this year, he travelled even further afield to deliver a series of lectures in Australia. During his visit, Christopher met numerous UFO researchers, spoke with many fascinating characters, travelled to Pine Gap, one of the most secretive bases on the planet, and even had time to spare to videotape yet more anomalous activity down under. Captured on camera, here are just a few of Christopher's clips from the land of Oz.
Some of the houses there, they'll blow your socks off. You've never seen houses like it in England, I'm not joking. I might do a bit of that tomorrow, just to give you a sense, because it will blow your mind.
Well, 30 years ago I trained as a nurse and midwife, and then I was trained into counselling about 15 years ago, and I worked in a medical practice in England for 5. In the meantime, we were looking at going overseas, and Australia seemed a really good bet because it's still very much a sort of culture we're used to. So it was either now or never. So in our 40s that we actually came over here with the family. And I decided that really nursing wasn't anymore for me, so counselling was the way I wanted to go. In the meantime, I got some people with very interesting experiences coming to me saying, look, I don't know where to go, but these things are happening. I don't know if I'm going crazy and all that kinds of things. And the one that was very significant was my very first experience, a mature man. I'd known a little bit about abduction kinds of experiences through reading John Mack's book and Whitley Strieber's experiences, but I'd never ever thought I'd come across anyone who had it. I thought it's extremely rare. And I was actually doing advanced counselling at the time, and I took this to supervision, the case study. Nobody could give me any insight. They were all fascinated, but they couldn't come to any conclusion. I found I was educating them, and I thought, what's the point of this? You know, they're not helping. I'm doing a course where we're talking about human experience, and they haven't got a clue. So I decided to do my own research, and from that I met another lady who was a social worker that had her own experiences, and we started up a support group.
Do you want to just remind me what we saw, what you saw?
Well, just this very, very bright light, brighter than a star, and it started to move, and within the space of a few seconds it was moving up, and then it just blinked out. It just went, just gone. And it's the first time I've seen anything like that. Just amazing.
Had about 4 hours sleep, so I'm a little bit jet lagged, but I hope you'll forgive me. On Tuesday in London, before I was about to catch a flight, I got a call from Mr. Lyndon Riggs.
I downloaded it and got the bloke.
Did you download it to me?
No, on a floppy disk. And I took the floppy disk down and they blew it up the best they could. Right? So it's probably the same UFO from a different angle. Okay.
When was this?
Oh, a couple of days ago. This is only last week.
Tuesday, April the 9th. Chris? April the 9th.
But they say, Chris, they're looking to see UFOs every day, and this is in daytime. Right? That's the same goal there. That's north. If we had the time, I'm almost tempted. No bullshit. It's just going to Wycliffe Well, which is 400 kilometres north. It only takes 4 hours to drive there.
Doesn't that make sense?
But listen, I'm not being silly talking this crap. That's another hot spot. It's probably hotter than this at the moment. It's so good that this is just a bloke got a alien body. He paid $5,000 for it. You know, this is this area out where we're going today. Okay, it's wide open. Channel 9 came up. This is Marilyn here. She's a nice lady.
Oh, right.
She speaks good English.
Yeah.
Better than me. And, yeah.
But they had these road parties, you know, they was doing this road, or they were extending it for the rail. And it was the same thing again.
What colour?
It was the blue one.
The blue one?
Yeah, but see, my nephew, the same one, was driving the Falcon, and his wife was there. And I said to his wife, see, I think there's a blue light waiting for us. And my nephew said, oh, not again, Auntie. Yeah, it's them, all right. So we driving along. It was just there in the bushes. And I said, no, it's coming up. It sort of came up. And it was, you can see the spinifex and all the scrub sort of blue colour. But it was shaped like that. A little
Was
window.
that the same as
Same.
your
It was,
painting?
it was the same
Same
exactly.
one, came back. Feel...
Well, an extraordinary thing's been happening to me. Yeah. A lot of things. So I was just thinking, if would they be able to read people's mind, or
Yes.
whether
Yes.
they like?
Yes.
Well, Tennant Creek is a lot, big trip, and I thought, oh goodness, I don't like going. Then I thought, oh no, we'll go. Then I remember, then when we got near Waycliffe, we'll probably see something. I said to my nephew and his wife. And next thing I said, yes, the blue light's there. And he said, not again, Auntie. Where? I said, on the right. On the right. But it must have landed. It was in between the bushes and trees and that. But as we got nearer, and I think it's about 300 metres away from the highway. And it came above, and it was just floating above the trees. And you could see a beautiful blue light. It was so beautiful. The light itself, sort of gave you that feeling.
Was it a soft fluorescent?
Yes, yes.
And you had a pleasant feeling from it?
Yes, yes. And see, one night, it was just an evening, the sun just went down. Well, we sat down out there, and we were looking at that rock, my sister and I. We looked, and next thing, what is that? And these two lights came over, but there was darkness. Next thing, shoo. And I said, you sure it's not Rambo over there? And it was there for a long time. It was there for a long time, and I said, aren't they going to move? So I don't know whether they came up, and then it started moving. But it was so fast. So I think they might got something there in the back.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, if I don't get anything and you do, you send me a copy. I'll take it off.
Yeah,
I'm daring, aren't I?
I've made your radar department uncorrelated targets and unknown event. So if you'd like to hand it over to your radar department, it's perfectly fine. They know all about it apparently. There was a phone call made yesterday, so I'm just delivering it. So.
What was your name?
My name's Kathy Dickman. I'm from Adelaide. All right, so they might enjoy looking at that. It's very interesting.
Are you going to take some footage?
No, I'm just going back. Okay.
No problem.
Just thought we'd hand that over, and I hope you all get to see it and enjoy it.
We'll pass it on.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
See you later.
Very polite. See, they walk. As soon as you started walking, they were walking out already.
Yeah, I knew it.
Did it? Yeah. Well, I did it.
Yeah, what they say, you can look at it.
Thank you.